Are we doing a sit-down shot? Are we able to actually do a sit-down shot? I think this might actually be the first time in a very long time that I am not filming where I have paint on my face, some type of dirty shirt on, or we're working on something. But I guarantee that by the end of this video, I will probably be laying underneath a school bus. One, because of the topic of this video, or two, because we just always end up laying underneath a school bus in every single video. Welcome back to another navigation or video. My name's Michael, and if you don't know, this is my school bus Navi. That's right, if you've watched previous videos, you know that I moved out of the school bus, but my parents have actually returned it back to me. There she is. You can kind of see it like right there. We got each other. We are back in the big bus. This feels really weird because this is actually my parents' house now. Hey Dad, how's the bus treating you?
Oh, wonderful.
So I've now just kind of turned it into a little bit of a film studio real quick, but we're just about to be starting the mini short bus build, or what I'm calling the short bus story. You can check out all the links down in the description below. But before we actually get that series started, one thing I wanted to discuss was why exactly would you choose a short bus over a large bus? So I just wanted to share with you some of the key points that you're going to want to think through, think about, or check out when looking for your next school bus. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that I want to look at and kind of discuss is going to be the cost difference between a large bus and a short bus. Now, a lot of times you might just be naturally thinking that a large bus is going to just intrinsically cost more, but that's not necessarily always true, and not in every part of the build. So depending on what you're actually looking at doing and looking at building, there are areas that you might actually be able to save money, and cost might actually not be as big of a factor as you think. The first thing we're going to look at are going to be tires, so let's head outside and check on that. So when we're talking about a big school bus, one thing you might notice is that the tires are just simply really big. One thing about these tires is that they're going to be costing around $300 to $500 a tire. This one right here is a rear tire. It's a retread tire. This one costs about $325 a tire. And because almost every school bus that's a big school bus is going to have 4 tires in the rear, which would also be like a dually, you're going to have 4 tires to replace. So 4 times $325 is what I paid for these back tires, and they're going to last for quite some time, but still, that's a pretty big expense. If your bus, when you buy it, automatically needs new tires, that's going to come right out of the budget right in the beginning. Now, in big school buses, when we're talking about front tires, we're going to be talking about steer tires. You can't put recaps or old tires on the front ones, and that means they're also going to be a little bit more expensive because they're one solid piece. These tires, or this one specifically, cost me about $400, and obviously you're going to need 2 of those. So in just front tires alone, we're looking at like $800 for this big bus. In total, this big school bus and the one that I previously owned, I think my tires actually ended up costing around $3,000 to $4,000 depending on the quality of tires I bought. But that's a pretty big expense when you're talking about a big school bus. Now, if we're talking about a little school bus, things are a little bit different. Now, if you've noticed, this bus has already been worked on a little bit. Pay no attention to the fact that the bus series hasn't started yet. We're about 3 weeks ahead on filming, so you got something to look forward to when you kind of see what we're doing here. But what we're talking about is tires. When it comes to most little school buses, you're gonna end up with pretty much just truck tires. These tires right here are the same tires that you'd put on a Chevy 3500 or a Ford F-150. Most of the time, these are going to cost only about $150 to $200 a tire, which is substantially less than the big tires that you're going to be putting on a big bus. So in terms of trying to figure out which bus is going to cost you more money when it comes to tires, a little bus in the long run is going to give you less maintenance costs. Now, this holds true for other parts of the bus as well. Not that I'm going to go into every single facet, but I think you'll get the point. When looking at maybe even doing a simple oil change on a big bus versus a small bus, you're going to see a large difference. So when we're talking about the big bus, we've got a Mercedes 900 engine here, and if you know absolutely nothing about engines, I'm sure you can guess that this one takes a significant amount of oil compared to the little bus. Specifically, I don't actually know how many quarts of oil this takes. So apparently this one takes about 30.6, which at $15 a gallon is going to take quite a bit of money to actually just change the oil, and that's not including changing the filters and all the different types of things that go along with an oil change. Now we look over at the short bus, the mini school bus, which is a 6.0 liter diesel engine, which you clearly can't see very well. But the difference between this one and the big bus is this bus actually only takes about 5 quarts of oil. So if you can imagine, from 5 to 30.6, we're having a significant cost difference. So when you're trying to choose between a large bus and a short bus, These types of factors are going to significantly change your cost between a big bus and a short bus. The first factor that you're probably thinking of when you talk about cost is probably going to be how much does it cost to actually buy a school bus? And when looking at big buses and short buses, you probably want to know which one's going to be more expensive. And it's probably not what you're expecting. Big buses and small buses, you'd think that the big one has more metal, it has a bigger engine, it's typically a large truck chassis, it's probably going to cost more. No. I've actually found that short buses have been more expensive for me to buy than large buses, but typically every bus that I've ever bought, big or small, I've actually never spent over $4,500 on a bus. The most I ever spent was on a pristine, really good school bus that was about $4,500. But really, the short buses and big buses, I usually pick them up around $25,000 to about $4,000. Now, speaking of that, I also do watch the market quite well and spend a lot of time surfing through the internet for buses that become available. And I would say that, you know, these short buses, they kind of come in around that $4,000 to $5,000 range. And I've seen a lot of really good ones go for around that price range. Now, I'm not saying you can't find them for more money. Some out there might be worth more money. I just want to lay out some simple numbers that I know that I've purchased from school buses and what I've seen out in the market. But really, at the end of the day, it depends on what you find. And I don't think that the purchase price of a school bus is going to determine much if it's a large or short bus. Another big thing with cost is going to come to actual building materials and supplies that you're going to be using. In a lot of cases, if you're building a short bus versus a big bus, you would imagine that the big bus is going to cost more. And I would agree with you. Big buses tend to cost more than short buses simply because you have more space to build. For example, if you're going to be spray foaming your school bus and using a commercial company, that tends to range around $1 to $1.50 per cubic foot. So my short bus, my 2004 Chevy Collins, needs about 900 cubic feet to actually spray foam it, whereas this large bus that we're currently sitting in is somewhere around 1,600 cubic feet. And if you do the math at $1 to $1.50 per cubic foot, my little bus is going to cost me about $900 to spray foam, and this big bus is going to come out around $1,600. And I've seen a lot of quotes that I've gotten over the years to kind of fall out within that range. So when you're building a short bus versus a small bus, you're not necessarily going to save on the actual material, but you will have to realize that you have to insulate or you have to build out an extra 15 or 20 feet of a school bus, which is going to overall raise your budget. Now, we're talking about systems within the school bus in terms of your solar, your water, your propane systems. These costs are not really going to go up or go down depending on if a large bus or a short bus. And that's mostly because at the end of the day, a 2.6 gallon per minute SureFlow pump on Amazon is going to cost about $86. Now, regardless if you're buying a short bus, school bus, or a soccer mom minivan, that water pump's still going to cost $86. So for the most part, your system expenses, if you were planning on putting a solar system in or planning to put a water system in, it doesn't matter which one you get because at the end of the day, you're going to be buying the same materials. Really, the only extra cost that you're going to be adding there is possibly extra PEX line. You might be adding extra Romax wires, extra 12-volt wires, and you might even spend more money on different types of things like fixtures. So on a short bus, you might only have 3 lights, whereas in a big bus, I have quite a few. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's currently broken, but 5, 6, and sideways 7. In all these cases, the fact that I had 7 lights in this bus rather than maybe 3 or 4 puck lights, that is going to add some cost. But overall, if we're looking at the actual cost of a solar system, the water system, or propane, the actual physical brains of the components are not going to cost any more depending on what size bus you get. But those costs are really going to be nominal over the course of the entire build. When you're talking about buying a 2,000 watt solar system or you're buying a bunch of solar panels or inverters, that's where your cost is going to go, not necessarily into the wires. So if you're considering different types of systems, they can go in either rig. Another big factor that is definitely going to affect your decision between a short bus and a big bus, and one thing that has actually driven me to actually go towards a short bus, is your travel restrictions. A lot of times people don't think about the fact when you buy a school bus, you are putting yourself down a road, literally, that you might not be able to drive. This big school bus that I'm currently in, I've lived in for over 4 years, traveled all across America, and I've driven over 150,000 miles in it. And I can tell you that I've learned my fair share of places that I should not and probably should have not been. I kind of live under the opinion that this school bus is a 4x4 and if it's a dirt road that it can go down it. But the truth is that not every vehicle is created equal and that this big school bus does have restrictions. So Gary, how was your first off-roading experience in the bus?
It was epic, man. That was so gnarly.
I drive down dirt roads and beat the crud out of my bus because I get to see views like this. But which path should we take? You know, you take that one, you take that one. I'll give you a really good example. If you're planning on going to, say, Glacier National Park in Montana, you're not going to be able to drive this big school bus through it. And that's because they have length restrictions. Because of the roads and the switchbacks that go through the national park, you can't have any vehicle over 21 feet, which means if you plan on driving up to the visitor center in the middle of the mountains, you're not doing it in this school bus. In that case, you might want to actually get a short bus or attach a tow vehicle to the large bus to allow for those types of adventures and travels. So when you're trying to pick out if a short bus or a large bus is going to be the best option for you, you might want to think ahead a little bit about what types of travels, where you plan on going, and how your lifestyle is actually going to pan out. Because at the end of the day, the type of rig you're going to get is going to affect what you're able to do. The last main thing that you're going to have to decide between a short bus and a large bus is going to be your floor plan design and where you're going to actually lay things out. Now, this is a really big factor because, let's be honest, in a short bus, you have anywhere between 90 to 140 square feet, where in this bus that we're currently in, you have 220 to sometimes up to 260 square feet to play with. And that's a lot of difference. I mean, you're literally doubling the size of the square footage. Now, one of the most common questions I get is, if I buy a short bus, am I able to put a bathroom in it? Can I really put everything I need? And the answer is yes. It's just, it might not be as big as the one that I currently have in this school bus. So as you can see, I have a fairly large bathroom. It's a 32 by 32 inch base, and then I also have a Nature's Head toilet in here. So obviously, if you have less room, things are going to be less as big. Obviously, you have less room, things are going to be less big. But in any way, really, if you buy a short bus, all in my opinion that's going to do is make you have to design better. You're going to have to be more intricate in the ways that things are going to flip and fold. You have to find inventive ways to fit the things that you want. But honestly, I've built small buses and I've built big buses, and there's really no reason, in my opinion, why you can't put everything you put in a big bus into a small bus. A good example is that this school bus currently, it actually sleeps 6 people in beds because all the couches fold out, the rear bed actually folds out, and I can sleep and fit a lot of people in this bus. Whereas the short bus, if you had a family of 4, I'm not too sure you're necessarily going to be able to fit 4 beds inside of a short bus comfortably and also still make it function in a living situation. I think we're a little bit overdoing this point, but I think you kind of get it. It doesn't really fit very well in a short bus. So if you're a family of 4, maybe a short bus isn't the best option. But if you're just someone who's trying to figure out which one is the best option for you, look at your lifestyle, look at your situation, and figure out what you can fit in either option, and that may help you come up with the best decision. Now, this video was really focused on just throwing out some information for anyone out there who's trying to figure out if they should do a short bus or a big bus. Especially since we're going into a short bus conversion and that this build series is getting started, some of you might be inclined to think, man, that's a really good option. But I just want to put it out there that you really have to think through your personal situation, and all of this is very individual. Because the truth is that your life is different than mine, and your decisions and places you want to go are different than mine. So that means that every single vehicle is going to match a different type of person. I always like to say that the structure makes the function. And what I mean by that is that this bus is 37 feet long. It's a big structure. And because of that, it's not going to be able to do and function certain ways. So in other cases, like the short bus, which has a much shorter wheelbase and a much shorter overhang. So this bus's function is going to be a lot different, and it's gonna be able to go a lot more places because of the size of the structure. So one of the most important things you can do when trying to figure out if you need a short bus or a big bus is going to be figuring out what foundation you need, because the one thing that you really can't change once you buy the bus is the size or the frame. So really you wanna make sure you pick the right foundation for the right project. So I said at some point that I would end up underneath of a school bus, and unfortunately in this video I never had an opportunity. So I figured let's close the video underneath of a school bus. So I just wanna say thank you for watching. If you guys are interested in following along with the build series that's gonna be starting, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you're interested in checking out any of our merch or any of our information on our website, you can head over to the website and check the link in the description. And lastly, if you're interested in supporting this channel, you can check out our Patreon account where we do monthly live streams, and I also post blogs that only get posted on Patreon, which can be very helpful to some of you out there who might be building. But if you just came to this video just to figure out if you want to buy a short bus or a big bus, I just want to say thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you on the build series.